This is WFYI News Now. It's August 21st, and I'm Abriana Herron. On today's show, parents and educators push for major changes in how Indianapolis schools are governed. The Indiana Department of Health reminds parents about how to put infants to sleep safely. And we have a feature story on youth violence in Indianapolis and how numerous local nonprofits work to provide support for teens.
So it's important that we take the time to talk to them about how do you solve your differences in a meaningful way, right? That doesn't harm you or the person that you're having that issue with.
Those stories coming up, but first, a piece of Marion County history has landed on an annual list of the state's most endangered landmarks. The group Indiana Landmarks is raising money to help preserve 10 sites that need repairs, including Traders Point Covered Bridge in Indianapolis. The bridge has stood for nearly 150 years and once carried traffic traveling along 86th Street on the city's northwest side. It was marked for demolition in 1959, but saved and relocated by a farmer, and sits now on private property. Indiana Landmark says they would need about $2 million to restore the bridge and move it to a public location. Parents and educators are pushing for major changes in how Indianapolis schools are governed. Eric Weddle reports a new proposal would put district and charter schools under a new version of the Indianapolis Public Schools Board.
The advocacy group Stand for Children Indiana released a plan that would make sweeping changes in Indianapolis education. It calls for one board to oversee all schools within the IPS boundaries. That's the traditional district, charter, and innovation schools. This new board would decide on budgets, facilities, and school openings, while every campus would eventually have its own local governing board. Supporters like parent Latoya Tarahu say the approach would give schools more independence but keep them accountable under the same framework.
Them being able to make decisions for their building and their students, but being under one board that is governing them and holding them accountable.
The Indianapolis Local Education Alliance will review the proposal as it prepares recommendations for lawmakers later this year about how IPS could change. I'm Eric Weddle.
The Indiana Department of Health is reminding parents about how to put infants to sleep safely following an increase in deaths. Unsafe sleep has caused 10 deaths in Indiana so far this month, more than twice the average. Advice from the IDOH included ensuring that babies are put to sleep alone, that they are placed on their backs, and that there are no blankets or pillows in the baby's crib. In a statement, State Health Commissioner Lindsay Weaver said, quote, "These tragic deaths are preventable and can have a profound impact on communities," end quote. Suffocation caused by unsafe sleep environments is the third leading cause of death for all Indiana infants. And for our final story today, youth violence in Indianapolis recently received high-profile local and statewide attention after a number of shootings involving teens. Many nonprofits work to counter the root causes of this violence, including the Boys and Girls Club of Indianapolis. Jill Sheridan recently asked CEO Maggie Lewis about its programs and how to get more children to connect with them.
We're talking about, part of the programming that is the community protective factor. Can you talk a little bit about, what that is and what that really means?
So the Boys and Girls Clubs of Indianapolis provide a safe place where kids can come and truly just be kids. And so, we all can turn on the news, listen to the radio, and hear about all the things that are happening that are impacting our kiddos. But then also, we provide that mentorship. We know how important it is to have a caring adult. We ensure that there's tutoring available to our young kiddos. We also provide services for kids who have gotten off the beaten path, if you will. Maybe they've dropped out of school, had trouble with law enforcement. We provide an opportunity for them to come and get services and divert them from getting caught up in our legal system. Basic needs, food, right? We know that a lot of our kids live in food deserts. We ensure that they have healthy, nutritional meals and snacks, and some of our kiddos even go home with meals.
We're talking about academics, character development,
Yes.
that health piece. That
Yes.
health piece is really really critical when we're talking about, the social determinants of why one child is going to thrive and another might not.
Absolutely.
Gun violence
Gun
is also, a public health concern, something that the Boys and Girls Club does,
Absolutely. So it's about prevention and teaching them how to problem solve, right? There's got to be a way for us to deal with our differences without going to grab a gun, to have a street fight, if you will, right? So it's important that we take the time to talk to them about how do you solve your differences in a meaningful way, right? That doesn't harm you or the person that you're having that issue with.
I feel like in the last, couple decades, though, we really have turned, as many communities have, to looking at these root causes.
Yes.
How can we think about, really doing that work, that root cause work?
I think sometimes adults, we make things a little bit too complicated. We have to just kind of step back and get back to the basics. Our mission has not changed. Like, we want to ensure that our kiddos have the tools that they need in order to be successful. Sometimes it is making sure that they have a roof over their head, a safe place to go and be a kid. But sometimes it's also food, right? Maybe they're acting out because they need to eat, right? And so the best thing that they can figure out is go rob someplace and get something to eat, right? So again, I think we just have to get back to the basics and take the time to find out really what's going on in that child's life that's allowing him or pushing him to or her to act a certain way.
And how can we, help connect more youth? We obviously had a very high-profile incident involving youth in the downtown area on July 4th. And then, about a week later, another one on the Far East Side at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Obviously, a curfew is not going to help, that incident. But how can we get more youth connected to these services?
Word of mouth. This platform helps us. All the stations can talk about safe places where kids can go and be kids. And then one of the things that I share with my team, and you didn't ask for this, but I think it's important as a service provider that we ensure that we're relevant and providing the things that young folks want to do, right? And so we have to do our part. But again, as many folks talking about the Boys and Girls Clubs and those other organizations, it really does help us. And if you can direct them that way as well, that truly does help.
Thank you so much for coming in today.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.
That was Maggie Lewis, CEO of the Boys and Girls Club of Indianapolis, talking with Jill Sheridan. Lewis is also a member of the Indianapolis City County Council. That's all for today's episode of WFYI News Now. Our podcast is produced by Zach Bundy, with support from the news team at WFYI and public media journalists across the state. Our news director is Sarah Neal-Estes. Kendall Antron produced our music, and I'm your host, Abriana Herron. If you like today's episode, remember to subscribe and share, and follow WFYI on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and YouTube to check in on our newsroom throughout the day. Thanks for listening. We'll be back tomorrow.